Chris, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. Chris, there's so much to ask you in the limited time. Why don't we start with your latest passion regarding the book and the product you've shown us? Can you spend a minute and talk to us about how this came about and the inspiration behind the book?
Well, the book is called Makers, the New Industrial Revolution, and it's about the rise of the maker movement. And this weekend is Maker Fair here in San Mateo, so it's a big weekend for the movement. But fundamentally about desktop manufacturing, the rise of these digital tools like the 3D printer I just showed, and how they've gone from factories to everyone, much like the personal computer did, or the internet for that matter, and how this is bringing about a kind of a grassroots revolution in manufacturing the same way the web did grassroots revolution in media and broadcasting and beyond. So we've seen this picture before. Now it's happening to physical stuff.
Going to your company, 3D Robotics, the product which is drone, it's appreciated in some parts of the world, loathed in other parts of the world. I'm not asking you to take a stand, but let's talk about the technology and how it evolved and what it addresses beyond where it is being focused now.
Sure. So we make drones. We're one of America's leading drone makers. We sell tens of thousands of these things. Ours are not military. They're not sold to the government. They don't carry weapons. They're cameras, basically, with wings or propellers of various sorts. They're used a lot in agriculture and Hollywood for filming, for sports and things like that. It's just, if you can get an aerial perspective, why not? And it's an easy way to get cameras in the air. We came out of a community called DIY Drones. We're open source. We're created, 5 years ago, I was messing around with my children with Lego and, first realized that regular people could make autopilots, which is the brain that flies the plane. 5 years later, we have big factories in San Diego and Tijuana, Mexico, offices in Berkeley. We're a multi-million-dollar company. We make more drones than any aerospace company in America, and that's the maker movement playing out into a real company.
So I guess it was a no-brainer to get funding for this kind of a company.
It was not hard to get funding, no.
The question to ask you is, you ran Wired magazine for years, and then running a company, very different ballgames. How do you translate that because to become a successful entrepreneur is very different, and again to use this technology for making drones. So I'm trying to learn from you so we can inspire other entrepreneurs out there. What does it take?
It's less different than it would seem. First of all, I was a boss at Wired, and I'm a boss now. Our teams are about the same size. We have about 75 people at 3D Robotics. I had about that many people at Wired. True, I started this company, whereas I didn't start Wired, but Wired was part of a sort of standalone division of a New York-based media company, Condé Nast, and they let us run it quite entrepreneurially. So it's actually more similar than you would think. Now, of course, at Wired we made words and pictures and media, and now we make drones, and so my team at Wired were editors, and my team at 3D Robotics is manufacturing workers. So there's a difference there. But otherwise, running companies and managing people is more similar than it is different.
That's one side of the story. But for entrepreneurs, it's not as easy because the products are very different. So the challenge we are trying to address is how do you take technology like this and convert it into a product and do it production that you're doing at that scale?
Hire, sort of partner well. My co-founder, Jordi Munoz, a guy who I met on the internet, who turned out at the time when I met him was a 19-year-old from Tijuana, Mexico, just graduated from high school. We decided to work together. I was still working as the editor of Wired, so I didn't quit my day job. He didn't have a day job, so he decided to do it full time. Next thing I noticed, we had a factory. We had employees, bookkeepers, a forklift, pick and place machines, robots, and it's oh my God. So basically, the secret is partner well. My partner happened to be a genius at just doing it, at building factories overnight and just sort of going from concept to product, shipping everything. It made it possible for me to lead a fundraising round and then come on board as CEO.
When you look back to the days when you're running Wired, you had exposure to the whole landscape of technology evolution. When you look at the broader world, Do you think it's truly a flat world and anybody anywhere can truly plug into any part of the world, and if they have a brilliant idea, they can just have access? Or still you think there are certain limitations in other parts of the world?
It's pretty flat. I mean, and I speaking experience, we're based on a community. So we're DIY Drones is a community. The community pulls from around the world, mostly outside the United States. That community came together to build the technologies that my company turns into products. We have, some of our top developers are in Australia or Brazil or Israel or Japan. We have, contributors from China. Many in Europe are partnered with a Swiss university. Our team's Mexican, so we're about as flat as an organization, can be in terms of geography. The only commonality is English, and technology. But, if they can speak English or they can communicate in English, it doesn't matter, where they live, what education they have, what experience they have. I mean, look at my co-founder, the president of my company, Mexican from Tijuana, never been to college. Doesn't matter. We just don't care about that stuff. We don't care about what country they come from. All we care about is what can they do.
But Chris, don't you think this is very unique to US, like taking on the opportunities and taking the risk and giving the opportunity to people from around the world to plug into a system where you are no better than the other person, you're no less equal to the other person. Is this a unique US phenomenon? Now that you go out around the world trying to recruit, do you find that?
There's nothing American about open source. We're built on the Arduino platform, which is Italian. We're built on Raspberry Pi, which is British. We're built on all sorts of open source projects like, MySQL or etc. They're all international. Linux was created in Finland. I don't see anything particularly American about community and openness and collaboration on the internet.
So I think that's very gratifying for everybody out there to listen to this.
That 3D printer I showed you, by the way, is RepRap that came from England.
There you go. So I was saying I think it's very gratifying for other people to know from around the world who are listening to you is that, it doesn't matter where you come from, as long as you have the passion, the drive, and of course some of the skills that are required, you can plug into any of the entrepreneurial venture and get going.
I think that's true. I mean, obviously I have some advantages, and I am here in Silicon Valley, so it's easy for me to say that you can be anywhere. But our community does show that, and the fact that I partnered when the editor of Wired decided to start a drone company, partnered with a teenager from Tijuana who'd never been to college, sort of suggests there's some truth to it.
Chris, again, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.